Welcome to Blackbriar Gaming. Today we have all of the leaks. They're all coming through. We're actually going to start getting, I think, official content in about 24 hours times. But before then, I thought I'd drop another cheeky leak video. This time looking at all of the tacticas for the legions, both loyalist and traitor. We have it all now. I'm not going to show up all of the pages from the Libers. If you want to go looking for them, go nuts. I dare say if I go and just put the whole things up, Games Workshop might have some issues with that. So instead, I've got some slides here that I'm going to go through that give a brief overview of what those traits are. Tacticas, I should say, and then I'll talk through them. Now, of course, the Legion Tacticas are the new names for the Rights of War. Rights of War now encompasses a bunch of special rules, which I won't go into for all legions because we'd just be here forever. I'll divide them up by legions in the future and go deep into army building considerations around those for each legion in army building videos. But today, just a quick look at all of the Legion Tacticas so that we can compare them a little, talk through them, how they've changed, what they look like, how they're going to play, and just enjoy them before this stream of extra content comes out over the weekend. But before I do, just a reminder that the Blackbriar Gaming Discord and Patreon are now live. Plenty of discussion around the leaks and the new edition going on in that Discord. So many people have joined, so if you're interested in that, jump on in. Alright, enough of that, let's get into it. First up, of course, the first Legion, we've got the Dark Angels. So they read negative modifiers to Dark Angels' leadership, willpower, cool, and intelligence are limited. Now, what does that mean? Essentially, models with this special rule may never have their leadership characteristic modified to less than 6. Additionally, any variant of the Fear special rule may only reduce a leadership, willpower, cool, and intelligence characteristics of any model with this special rule by a maximum of 1, regardless of the value of X. This is kind of a bit like they've taken up the old Word Bearers special rule, unless I'm mistaken. However, it's a little different to how it was in 2nd edition. So I think and there's a few of them, tacticas around protecting your leadership and protecting your cool will actually be quite powerful because tactical statuses are going to be everywhere. They're going to have a significant part in the game, and being able to maintain a decent leadership and a decent cool will be pretty good. The Fear, specifically, the Dark Angels focuses on, while slightly thematic, I guess, is also, I think, speaking to the fact that they spent a lot of the Horus Heresy fighting against the Night Lords. So that might have something to do with it there, and that's a bit of fun, because I think we're going to see a lot of fear coming out of the Night Lords. The leadership modified to less than 6, I don't love it. It wasn't overly impactful for the Word Bearers in 2nd edition. Trying to roll that 6 leadership test isn't great. I would have loved to see 7 there to at least give you the odds in your favor. But that's the Dark Angels, so just about keeping them where they're meant to be, on the table, keeping them on objectives, keeping them moving, and keeping them doing what you want them to do. So I guess it's pretty thematic. From a power perspective, though, I don't think it's overly fantastic. Moving on. We have the Emperor's Children. Now, the Emperor's Children, just like the World Eaters, are divided into Astartes and then Hereticus. I've called them loyal and traitor here, but I don't know if that's really the correct way to look at it. I'm not 100% sure, although I think I could look at that. I'm not 100% sure if the Emperor's Children Astartes is in the Astartes Liber or it is still in the Hereticus Liber. I think it's in the Hereticus Liber still, even though it says Legiones Astartes Emperor's Children, but we'll have to wait and see. I don't have that 100% confirmed. If someone knows that, please say in the comments. But let's get into it. The Astartes Emperor's Children, and the reason there's 2 is that it's meant to represent the Emperor's Children at the start of the heresy, and then, of course, as they devolve into the madness that they embrace, what they look like at the end of their heresy. So the Astartes version is Emperor's Children get an initiative bonus when they successfully charge. Now that bonus looks like +1 until the end of the phase. This is pretty familiar for 2nd ed players. Is it going to be good? I think so. So charges are going to be a little more reliable in this edition. The way weapons are changing will be significant, and you're going to see that initiative piece really coming into it, because of course all of those strike last weapons now aren't just go last no matter what your initiative is doing. All of the Power Fist and Thunder Hammers and all that stuff will be impacted, although I'm pretty sure they were in 2nd edition from memory, and I should know because I do have an Emperor's Children army. But charging is an interesting one. Are we going to see more charges or less charges in this edition? I want to say more. I think the edition overall will be a little more shooty. But let's remember too that initiative bonus also impacts your ability to charge as well, because it affects your setup move. So the initiative and movement characteristics are doubly important in this edition, because they also affect your ability to charge. So I don't know if that +1, and it's unit by unit basis. I'm not sure if for regular Marines that's going to push them over the edge to give them an extra inch for their setup move. But if it does, geez, that's good. We'll have to check that out and discuss that at another time. But this one overall, it's okay. It's pretty similar, nothing new or exciting for this, but it will have some extra impact in this edition versus the last. Hereticus. The Hereticus is the controlling player may choose that a unit becomes stupefied when it is the target of a shooting attack. Now this is interesting. From a narrative lore perspective, I don't love the word stupefied. It kind of implies that they're stupid and that they're going into a bit of a daze, I guess. They don't really know what's happening or what's going on, which I don't know is overly appropriate. If anything, they're embracing more feeling and more sensation as Emperor's Children. But let's look at what stupefied means. So, after a shooting attack that targets a unit entirely composed of models with this special rule is resolved, that unit's controlling player may choose for the target unit to become stupefied. So what does that mean? When a unit becomes stupefied, all tactical statuses affecting it are removed. In addition, while a unit is stupefied, here we go, a model in that unit, this is very much like the World Eaters, there's a lot of things going on here, but I think this will happen a lot more than it will for the World Eaters. Models in that unit have the Feel No Pain 6+ special rule. Notably though, it is after a shooting attack is resolved, right? So you're not going to get the Feel No Pain for the shooting attack that's occurring right then. You're going to be able to choose to enact Feel No Pain after the shooting attack. So Feel No Pain 6+. Next, strength characteristics of models in that unit is modified by +1. Models in that unit cannot gain tactical statuses. That's just really good. It's really good. The controlling player of a unit that is stupefied may not declare any reactions for that unit and must make all shooting attacks declared for that unit as snapshots. So you don't want to be giving this to your heavy support squads, for instance, unless they're pinned. Maybe you do, because in the effects sub-phase of the controlling player's end phase, the controlling player must make a cool check for each unit for their army that is stupefied, and if the check is passed, that unit is no longer stupefied. So there's a lot going on here. I really like this. So I really like it because, in particular, that strength characteristic and the Feel No Pain, yes, it triggers after the shooting attack is resolved, but what that will mean is that when you're getting charged, your opponent will have a chance to make their volley attack. Is it called a volley attack when they're charging as well, or is it just the charged unit that's making a volley attack? Either way, you're shooting at each other, right? In the charge subphase or whatever that's called. So they'll be shooting their pistols at you. They'll be shooting maybe some assault weapons at you, and that means after that's resolved, you get to just even if a tactical status isn't applied, you get to kick this off. Let me just make sure that's correct. Is resolved. Yeah, it's just resolved, right? So pretty much any time you get charged, or even when you're charging, because I imagine, and it might be that a shooting attack only happens technically in the shooting phase, but I don't think so. I'm sure it'll clarify at some point. But it appears that also, if someone volley fires at you, you get to turn this on while going into combat as well. So at all times, really in combat, whether you're charging or being charged, you're going to have a 6+ Feel No Pain and a +1 strength characteristic. Same, tactical statuses, they're just not going to mean that much to you, because they always happen after shooting attacks, and you can then just ignore them. Can you though? Okay, yeah, all tactical statuses are removed, and this one's better, I think, than the World Eaters, because you then can't gain tactical statuses, whereas I believe they can when they're lost to the Nows, but we'll look at that soon. So I think the Hereticus Emperor's Children Tactica is absolutely fantastic. I think this is really good, and this is going to be very popular for Emperor's Children players, which is great, because Hereticus armies just look really, really cool. Moving on, Iron Warriors. So, ignore negative modifiers for panic, pinning, stun, and suppressive. So, much like the Dark Angels, their Tactica is leaning towards helping them make sure they're doing what you want them to be doing on the battlefield and ignoring those tactical statuses. It reads, if the controlling player is making a leadership check or cool check for a unit that includes a majority of models with this special rule, they may ignore negative modifiers applied to the panic, pinning, stun, or suppressive special rules. So, to be very clear, you are not just ignoring tactical statuses. When certain weapons, that is with the pinning X, panic X, stun X, or suppressive X special rules are affecting you, they still can, but it doesn't matter what number they have in that X brackets area, because that negative modifier will not affect you. I think this is pretty good. I think it's very thematic for the Iron Warriors. I think it's going to help them avoid a lot of tactical statuses, which is going to keep them moving, going to keep them shooting, going to make sure they're not routing off objectives. I think this will just make your Iron Warriors army really reliable on the table. Now, is it overly exciting or flashy? No, not really. But I think for the Iron Warriors, that makes a lot of sense. And it's really thematic. So I think this is good. I think Iron Warriors players are going to be pretty happy with this. And I think we'll find on the table that this will be quite impactful. Moving on, and apologies for my bit of my croaky voice. I was just woken up by my 5-year-old, and it's quite early here in Australia. But let's keep going. White Scars. The White Scars player may increase their model's movement characteristic, and how much is that increased by? It is increased by 2. Now, it has to be for units with a base movement characteristic of at least 1, so your Tarantula Sentries aren't hopping up and walking around, although that would look kind of cool and be a bit of fun. But you're giving a +2. Now that +2, I believe, and I don't have a old book open next to me, but I'm pretty sure the old White Scars was only +1. So we're doubling that. So straight away, it's much better than that 2nd edition rule if that is the case. +2 is a lot to a movement characteristic. And is it any model? It's any model, any White Scars model. Fantastic. So this is big. So this affects their movement. Yep, until that player turn, end of that player turn, right? So it affects their movement in the movement phase. It affects their setup move, making sure that you're going to be able to get into enemy units when charging without them making volley attacks at you more than your opponents. And it's going to affect your charge range as well. So your charge range now is... that's if it affects the setup move. So because charge range, of course, doesn't go off your movement characteristic now, your movement characteristic plus your initiative equals your setup move. So much like that +1 that we saw before, it'll be interesting to see if this affects their setup move. And if it does, and it will for certain units, definitely, that will be really powerful. It's gonna at least give you an extra inch on your charge move there. But overall, that might be an extra 3 inches over a turn if you include the movement phase. So this is pretty good for White Scars. Now, I have other issues with White Scars, but now is not the time to talk about it. I think their Tactica is pretty good, and White Scars going fast seems like a White Scars thing. Moving on to the Volker Fenrika. Space Wolves make a longer setup move. Models with this special rule must add +2 to the distance of any setup move to a maximum of 6. These guys are going fast as well. Now, yes, okay, Space Wolves, great at charging. They're filled with righteous anger and fury as they charge into their heretics. Is it overly thematic or exciting? Not really. I don't love this one. It will make them very... Oh, that's my alarm going off there. It'll make them very reliable in getting into charges, but if this is an extremely shooting edition of Heresy, we'll see how good that is. So I think it's fine. It'll make them in the assault phase quite reliable, but I think for a lot of the game, this won't have that much of an impact. It will also make sure they're receiving volley fire a little less, but as a Tactica goes, it's a little one-dimensional. Let's move on. Imperial Fists gain a bonus of +1 when making hit tests with multiple bolt and auto weapons. Pretty similar. This reads, when making a shooting attack for a unit that only includes models with this special rule, add +1 to the result of hit tests made for attacks in any fire groups that include more than 5 dice or attacks that have the bolt or auto trait. Now, I could be incorrect, but fire groups, from my understanding, are when you have weapons of a same type being fired by units. They all go into a fire group and will often include more than 5 dice. So let's say you have a squad of 10 las cannons, you're firing all those 10 las cannons, that makes up a single fire group because they're all the same weapons at the same ballistic skill. I'm not sure if ballistic skill comes into it, but let's assume it does. You're going to have more than 5 dice in that fire group. So is this implying, and I think it is, crazy, that those las cannons are also getting +1 to hit because you're firing a whole bunch of them? Let's read that again. Add +1 to the result of hit tests made for attacks in any fire groups that include more than 5 dice or attacks and that have, hang on, more than 5 dice or attacks and that have, it's got, firstly, there's a typo in there, I'm pretty sure. So that's a little confusing. I'm not going to say for sure whether that's the case, but this rule seems to imply to me that Imperial Fists not only get the +1 for all bolt and auto weapons, no matter how many shots you're firing, but in any point where you're firing a lot of the same weapon, whether it be multi-melters or las cannons or whatever, you're going to be getting that +1 to hit, which is so very powerful. This implies that Imperial Fist, really any infantry unit that's still at a decent strength firing weapons of the same type is going to be getting this +1 to hit. Your vehicles probably will not for the most part, because unless you're firing something like heavy bolters or really any auto or bolt weapons, but if you've got a las cannon on the top and you're firing a couple of las cannon shots, you're not going to get this. So it is a more infantry focused. But at the same time, any vehicles that have those auto and bolt weapons also are getting +1. So this is almost like a +1 across probably 80% of your army to hit, which is really good. Notably, +1 to hit is not as good as +1 to your ballistic skill because, wait, does this affect snapshots? Probably this affects snapshots, so your snapshots are hitting on 4+ now instead of 5+. This just seems great. It's affecting volleys too, I imagine. It doesn't specify that it's not. If that all counts as a shooting attack, yeah, wow. This is really good. It's really good. Moving on. Night Lords have an improved weapon skill when fighting units that have tactical statuses. When locked in combat with any unit that contains at least one model which has any tactical statuses, models in that combat with this special rule gain an additional modifier of +1 to their weapon skill until the end of the phase. This is really nice, this is really thematic. The outnumbering piece that was in 2nd edition was also powerful, but it was a bit of a pain in the butt, and there were some awkward moments around it when it applied, when it didn't apply, involved a lot of counting. This is much simpler, because really, who likes to count? Not this guy. Now it's just tactical statuses, and I think that's very thematic for the Night Lords. They're going to want to pin or terrify their opponents first, make them stunned, make them suppressed, and then pounce on them. There's no bravery here about honorable fights, and that's very Night Lord-ish. That +1 weapon skill, I believe the weapon skill chart is still the same. The 2 hit chart in the close combat phase is still the same, whereby +1 is weapon skill is very good because it helps you both offensively and defensively. So this seems like a very powerful ability. Tactical statuses are going to be absolutely everywhere, especially for a Night Lord's army with all the fear kicking around, because I think fear affects all of those advanced characteristics as well as leadership. So I think Night Lords are going to be really good as they were in 2nd edition. I think that will continue, and maybe more so. Blood Angels. The strength of their attacks is increased when Blood Angels successfully charge. Come on, guys, what are we doing here? So this is, I believe, identical to what they had in 2nd edition. Please correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments. I'm sure you will. It wasn't overly great in 2nd edition, and I don't think it'll be any better in 3rd edition. In fact, it might be a little worse with the way that weapons now come about and the way things work. Now, saying that, there are a lot less rerolls in this edition, so that +1 to strength might be a little more meaningful and a little more impactful to certain weapons in particular, because you're not re-rolling with shred or any of those kind of shenanigans. So maybe it'll be a bit better, but I just don't think it's very interesting. I don't think it'll come up a lot, where it'll be overly impactful, because a lot of weapons this just will do nothing to, right? Although all those weapons that are winning on 2+, all those power fists, all those thunder hammers, this just isn't doing anything to. Now, we will have to look at the to wound chart to be doubly sure. I can't recall exactly how easy it is to get to that 2+. I don't think it's that easy. I don't believe it's if you're over by 2, like Old World, for instance, that you're moving to that 2+, but it still could be. So, and if that's the case, this becomes even less meaningful. I don't love it. I don't think it's great. I think it's a bit bland, and I think it's a bit lazy. So there we go. That's the Blood Angels Tactica. Sorry, guys. Otherwise, your army is lots of fun. Maybe. I don't know. I haven't looked deep into the rules yet. I just haven't had time. Just looking at the Tacticas. Let's move on. Iron Hands, shooting attacks, targeting Iron Hands suffer a strength penalty. Now, this is a little bit of an inverse, but it's around the shooting attacks from the Blood Angels. The range strength of attacks made as part of a shooting attack are modified by -1 when resolving wound tests. I think this is going to be pretty good. I think it's going to be really good on Dreadnoughts. This is, I believe, identical to 2nd edition. I wasn't a huge Iron Hands guy. They're not really my bag, but I know a lot of people out there really enjoy them, and I think this is going to keep being good. Certain units are going to absolutely love this. Now, range strength of attacks, just wounds. It's wounds test, right? So I don't believe this will impact your tanks. This will just be against things that have a toughness value. Unless I'm incorrect, but I don't think so. So once again, Dreadnoughts will be great. Now, it is harder to get lots of Dreadnoughts, so keep that in mind. But I think regular infantry will enjoy this as well, especially because it looks like Terminators are all going up to toughness 5 across the board. So this will make Iron Hands Terminators against bolt weapons really resilient. Bolters will really have a hard time taking these boys down. World Eaters. Alright, World Eaters, once again, have that Astartes piece and that Hereticus piece. I've said loyal and traitor on here. I don't know if that's 100% correct. That might be the wrong way to look at it, but let's get into it. World Eaters of the Astartes variant, which I say loyal here, gain that +1 to their attack characteristics when charging. Yep, okay, pretty stock standard, pretty familiar. Still good. It's definitely not bad. So that's that for the World Eaters. There's not much to talk about there. Attacks are good. More attacks is better than less attacks. And World Eaters like attacking things, and they like charging things. So it's fine. It will do the job. It will make sure you're killing more things. That's about it. That's about all I have to say to that. Is it overly exciting? Not nearly as exciting as the Hereticus one. Now, the loss to the nails is what we're talking about here. So the controlling player may choose that a World Eaters unit becomes lost to the nails when it fails a leadership check. So there's a lot of things here, and I directly compared this to the Emperor's Children one, because the Emperor's Children was when you have a shooting attack resolved against you, whereas this is about failing leadership checks. I don't think this is going to come up that many times in a game. I guess it depends on the game. It depends what it looks like. If you've got a army that's all about shooting flamers at you with panic, then this is going to come up a lot. So maybe if you're fighting Salamanders or you're fighting against Night Lords, trying to do some leadership routing shenanigans, then maybe this comes up a lot. Is if flamers become super meta, and they might, jet bikes screaming by with hand flamers to try and rout your units, then this army will become really important. But for the most part, I think this is only going to happen a few times in a game, maybe half a dozen. So for most of the game, your Tactica will not be on, but let's look at what it does. So when you fail a leadership, you become lost to the nails. It's very thematic. I love the theme behind it. I would have just preferred to see it like the Emperor's Children one, where maybe it was whereby you get any tactical status. You get lost to the nails instead of just failing a leadership check. Maybe it was failing a cool check as well, because I think that'll happen a lot more often. Now, lost to the nails. When a unit becomes lost to the nails, all tactical statuses affecting it are removed. In addition, it gets +1 to the distance of any setup move. You modify your attack characteristics by +1. Models in that unit are considered to have a leadership, cool, and willpower characteristic of 10, and you essentially have to charge things if it's within 12. Now, that can be used against you because the maximum charge range for a lot of units in this case will be 10. From your regular infantry, and that means that if they're sitting outside that 10, they can bait you into it. Now, you lose lost to the nails if there's no enemy units within 12 at the start of the player's charge subphase, which is an awkward time to lose it as well. So I think the Stupefy that we saw in the Emperor's Children is much, much better than this. Lost to the Nails, you get some great benefits from it, but when it's going to happen and how it's going to happen, I think is slightly awkward. It does not completely exclude you from future tactical statuses as well, even while you're Lost to the Nails. You do have that increased leadership cool and willpower of 10, but that doesn't mean you're impervious. So I think it's fun, I think it's thematic. When it happens, you're going to feel good. As a World Eater player, you're going to make some wild Lost to the Nails noises. It's going to be great to see on the table. Is it a super consistent and powerful rule? I don't think so. Let's see if I'm proven wrong. Ultramarines may reduce the cost of a reaction each turn. This will be really interesting to see how good this is. So reactions, we're going to see them, I think, quite a bit less each turn than we did. Although, I think for the most part in second edition, you're only getting a single reaction off anyway, for the most part. Or maybe it was one kind of each phase. It's been so long. It's been so long. But in third edition, which is what we're talking about here and what's important, we've moved on, people. We're moving on. Some people are moving on. Some people are not moving on. Not a conversation for now. You are only, for the most part, going to have one reaction per turn. This allows you, essentially, to have 2 reactions per turn, and reactions potentially of a more significant impact. I think this is going to be pretty good. Reactions, as we know, are very powerful. They are maybe at certain times more powerful and certain times less powerful. The main one being the reactive fire when you're getting charged. All units can do that now, but it's snapshots. Snapshots are kind of now better. So we'll see. We will see if this has a significant impact on the game. It will be I think it's thematic. I think the Ultramarines will be able to use this in some really interesting ways, to do some really interesting tactics, to confound their opponent and outmaneuver them, which is the point. And in that way, I like it. Interestingly, it only modifies the reaction point cost of that reaction by -1. Do we have reactions that cost more than 1 point? I'd hope so. I believe so, but we might not. But either way, notably, it is just -1 here, not -2 if that is the case. So will this be used? Definitely. I think the Ultramarine players are going to use this all the time. But whether it will be significantly impactful, we'll have to wait and see, compared to some others. And one in particular coming up, that is just really good. So that is the Ultramarines. Death Guard. Alrighty, models with this special rule may move and still benefit from the heavy special rule. Now, it's not their full movement, and I like what they've done here. So a model with this special rule, because second edition was just crazy. Death Guard were just the fastest army for whatever reason. But a model with this special rule that has moved no more than 4 inches in the movement phase and did not rush may still benefit from heavy X special rule on any weapon that they have. Additionally, and I like this, the controlling player of a model with this special rule may ignore negative modifiers to the movement characteristic of that model as a result of moving in difficult terrain. I think this is going to be very good. I do like that it's only 4 inches, so it's kind of that implacable, steady, slow advance of the Death Guard. They're not just running madly forward and also shooting heavy weapons, which is a bit crazy. They are moving at that plodding pace and still laying down that heavy fire. So I really like this from a thematic perspective. I think from a rules perspective, this is going to be very powerful. Now that heavy weapons have changed in that way, I think Death Guard players are going to enjoy this quite a bit. The difficult terrain, I think, is also really good. The terrain rules have been mixed up a bit in this edition, and I think we're going to see more terrain on the tables for a few different reasons. So Death Guard are going to be enjoying that for sure. So both powerful and thematic. That's a tick in my box. Thousand Suns, or all models are Psychers, just all of them, and they all have a higher willpower characteristic than shown on their profile, specifically a +1. I called it. This was when I was talking about Thousand Suns a few videos ago. I'm like, maybe when we saw the willpower advanced characteristic, maybe that means just all Thousand Suns are just going to have a higher willpower, which I think is great, because I don't think they should have a higher leadership as such. But in second edition, you couldn't give them a higher leadership, and you shouldn't have. So you couldn't make them better just at psychic checks without making them better at passing leadership checks. Whereas here, you can, because you have the willpower characteristic, and because you can, they have. And I like that. I like that a lot. So there's a lot to the Thousand Suns. They've got so many rules. I'll go into them another time, but that extra boost to their willpower is certainly going to make a difference, and it's great to see it on every single one of their models. Every single one. Higher willpower. That's really good. All right. moving on. Look, it's whether then their psychic powers are actually good will make the difference, but what I've seen from psychers and psychic powers so far, I've really enjoyed. So I think it will be used, I think it will be impactful, and I think it's very thematic, and it just fits. It's neat, it's easy. Well done, Games Workshop. You get a tick for that one. Sons of Horus, my goodness. Sons of Horus make volley attacks at their full ballistic skill characteristic. So this is a complete pivot from what we saw in 2nd edition, but I don't hate it. It to me, it just envisions lines of Sons of Horus. I'm reading False Gods at the moment, but just lines of Sons of Horus in battle ranks, just gunning down their opponents with bolters as they advance forward and as they get charged. So not a focus on close combat here. We've moved to the shooting aspect of it instead for the Sons of Horus, and I think that's fine. How have they justified it in the lore text here? Ever on the offensive, the Sons of Horus wasted no opportunity to attack their foe, unleashing salvos of fire even as they closed in for the kill. To simply best an enemy was not enough, for they must be utterly defeated before victory could be claimed in the name of Horus Lupercal. Okay, sure. Is it really thematic for the Sons of Horus to be better at shooting things as they're getting charged? I'm not sure. It'll be interesting. Please, Sons of Horus players that know more about the Sons of Horus than I do, let me know in the comments how you feel about this one, because I think it's powerful, right? I think this is an excellent rule. I think close combat armies are going to absolutely fear the Sons of Horus, charging into them when they're getting that full ballistic skill on every single volley attack they make, because it's not like other armies will be able to do this every turn because they're going to want to be making reactions in other places, right? So their volley attacks, for the most shot, will be snapshots. So I think this will just be used often. I think it will have a significant impact on the game, and I think Sons of Horus players are going to enjoy it thoroughly from a rules perspective, but tell me from a narrative perspective if this is what you're going for. Certainly it might mean that some Sons of Horus armies, besides models being invalidated, that's a discussion for another time as well, might want to look a little different to take advantage of this rule. Let me know in the comments what you think, Sons of Horus players. But I think it's good. I think it's a powerful rule. Word bearers gain additional combat resolution points. So when resolving a combat in the resolution subphase of the assault phase, score 1 combat resolution point if any friendly model in that combat have the word bearers trait. Score 1 combat resolution point. So either you've lost by 1 and you bring it up to a draw, or you've drawn and it's tipping you over the edge. I don't think it's overly exciting. I think it's so vanilla and bland for what the word bearers could have been. Now, no doubt the word bearers have all kinds of other rules that make them interesting and give them some spice, but this one in particular, just on its own, seems pretty unflavorful. It's about them being fanatics, right? And being just so dedicated to the cause that they'll keep on fighting even when they're losing. But that one little pip of combat resolution, I don't know if that's going to get them there. If it was like score 2 or 3, or, every combat is a draw. Maybe you never lose. Like, they could have made this, I think, a lot more powerful, and people still would have been okay with it. I don't think this is going to come up very often. I'm gonna be real honest with you. I think this will come up maybe once in a game, if you're lucky. Look, it does then affect your negative modifiers to leadership, so that's something, but their leadership doesn't cap like it used to. So if you lose by 5, you're now losing by 4. Is that going to really make the difference? Maybe it will. But I think, look, this will come up once or twice in a game where it'll make a difference, because it's only in combat, right? It's not every time you're taking a leadership or a cool check, which I think it could have been. I think they could have gone down that direction as well. I'm pretty disappointed in the word bears one. I'm going to be honest with you. Moving on. Salamanders. Units of Salamanders may ignore tactical status checks applied from flame weapons. Win tests made against Salamanders fail on an nope. What am I reading? Where are we? Okay, yes, because they've got multiple. This isn't the only one. Okay, I confused myself for a second here. So we have 2 tacticas for the Salamanders. You've got Promethean Endurance, and you've got Blood of Fire. So I've only got one of them here. Let me correct that. So you've got, and this is I'll change it for what you're seeing. This is just the one that I'm looking at right now. So win tests made against Salamanders fail on an unmodified roll of 1 or 2. I think that's really good. So those really powerful weapons, your las cannons, your missile launchers, your this or your that, are going to now have a 16% less chance, let's say, of wounding you. There we go. That's pretty good. Next, Blood of Fire. Units of Salamanders may ignore tactical status checks applied from flame weapons. I think this is going to be good. As I said before, when we were talking about the World Eaters, yep. I think flame weapons are going to be popular again. I think we're going to see them on the table, and I think Salamanders ignoring the whole leadership routing situation, panicking from those, it's going to come up. I think flame weapons are going to be a thing. So, I think the Salamanders rules are great. They're tough. They're tough, and they stick around on the battlefield. What could you not like about that? Moving on, though, they're pretty simple, pretty straightforward. All right, Raven Guard. All right, Raven Guard models are harder to hit with shooting attacks made at long range. This is so good, people. So when a unit that includes only models with this special rule is the target of a shooting attack, all attacks must be made as snapshots when the distance between the closest model and the attacking unit and the target unit is 18 inches or greater. So before you close within that 18-inch range, and once you do, you're getting pretty close to being able to assault for the most part, and especially with the kind of units that you want to be running in the Raven Guard, they're just making snapshots at you. So yes, these are on 5+ now instead of 6+, so snapshots aren't as bad as they used to be, so that's important to keep in mind. But this is fantastic, especially because assaulting out of deep strike isn't now a thing. I don't think you can do it at all. I will have to clarify that as I get deeper into the rules, but it appears that assaulting out of deep strike is not a thing. Mass deep strike is also not a thing. So you're going to want, as a Raven Guard player, and as certain other armies, you're going to want to set up quite a bit more on the table at the start of the game than you might have otherwise, and therefore going to have to slog it across the battle, where otherwise you might not have to. So this ability, therefore, to hide essentially in the darkness and get snapshots from your opponents as they're shooting at you at long range is really good. I think this is going to be a very shooting addition, and therefore this is going to come into effect a lot, and I think Raven Guard players are going to enjoy this thoroughly. I think it's powerful, I think it's thematic, it's a tick. Alpha Legion, finally. Alpha Legion models count as further away than they actually are, which is very familiar here. So a model with this special rule is always considered to be 2 inches further away than it actually is when measuring range to it from any enemy model for the purposes of, here we go, resolving a shooting attack, charging, or any reaction declared by an enemy model or unit. This is cumulative with any other modifiers to range imposed by special rules. So we'll see what else the Alpha Legion have to help with this. But very much this 2 inches further piece, it comes up quite a bit. Because charges now are going to be a little shorter, they're not going to be getting those long charges of 12 inches. Most infantry are going to be charging a maximum of 9. I think this 2 inches will be quite effective in stopping. So now they've got, a maximum charge range of 7 on the majority of infantry, and less for some. That is very powerful. That is really good. Wow. Shooting. Certain weapons, such as melters, for instance, are extremely powerful in this edition, and I think are going to be very popular, but of course, they're very short range, and being able to reduce that short range already, and now reducing it by 2, I think is going to be really good as well. So those shorter range weapons, in particular, will really suffer. It'll be interesting to see if this affects attacks made when getting shot at by volley attacks, or if volley attacks are always considered to be in range just because of the idea of charging. We'll wait and see. I'm not entirely sure that is the case, but just in those 2 circumstances that I was thinking about, I think is really good. So much like this is pretty much identical to 2nd edition, right? It was good then. I think it's going to be better now because of the way that charging and certain weapons being more popular are going to work. I think it's thematic for the Alpha Legion. I think you can use it in wonderful and sneaky ways, and indeed I have in many games. I think it's good. It will continue to be good. I think it's thematic, and I think it's fun. So that is the Alpha Legion. So there we go. So that is all of the Tacticas from the Legiones Astartes and Legiones Hereticus Libers here collected for you. Let me know in the comments what ones you think are good and what ones you think are bad. I've certainly given my opinions. I don't think they're all fantastic. I think some of them are a bit boring, some of them are a bit bland, some of them are not particularly impactful or not consistent, but others I think are really fantastic. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Importantly though, make sure to keep rolling those dice and getting hyped for for Heresy.